now are Jonathan Isaby, the editor of BrexitCentral, and Will Dry, co-founder of the anti-Brexit group Our Future, Our Choice. Now, let's go back to what's happening in Parliament today. This idea of having indicative votes to try and find majority opinions on Brexit. What do you think of this process?
Well, I suspect a lot of people out watching your programme are going to think what a ludicrous charade to be going through, saying, do we want to be a single market? Do we want to be a customs union? Do we want to have another referendum? All these questions have already been decided, as far as most people are concerned. There was a referendum. It was a straight question, a binary question, leave or remain. The government said they would implement whatever decision the British people made. They made a decision. The British people told the government, told Parliament, who gave the people the decision that they wanted to leave, and they expect people to get on with it. And indeed, on those questions of things like single market and customs union, there were amendments to the EU withdrawal bill just last year making those proposals, and they were all voted down. On a second referendum, that was voted down just 2 weeks ago by an overwhelming majority. OK, so it's a meaningless charade.
I think it might be a meaningless charade, but I think what it does prove is that I think you said earlier there are 15 or 16 different Brexit options being put down. I think Jonathan's actually wrong. I mean, I voted to leave in 2016. I ticked the ballot box where it said leave the European Union. That was 4 words. But now we've got 15 different options. I think what it proves is that there isn't one single Brexit option, and anybody who claims that they can speak for the British people on what they voted for in 2016 is frankly either supremely arrogant or quite delusional. I'm not at all saying Jonathan is doing that, but I do think that we've got to the stage where we're analysing Brexit options that every single one breaks the promises systematically that were made to the British people in 2016.
But isn't this an attempt to try and find something that politicians can agree on?
I think it absolutely is. But my point isn't that they shouldn't be trying to do this, is that once they have found a Brexit option that can find a majority in Parliament, it is going to be a million miles away from what people thought they were voting for in 2016. And that's why I think it's only democratic to put it back to the people in a people's vote. And that's why 1 million people marched last Saturday.
But you said you voted to leave.
Yeah.
Would you vote to leave again in another referendum?
Well, to be honest, I think it depends on the options on the ballot paper. But I haven't seen a Brexit option, I haven't heard about a Brexit option that comes remotely close to what we were promised in 2016. I think every single one is far, far worse than the deal we've got. Every single Brexit option means this crisis drags on and on and on. It provides no closure to this debate.
But I mean, that, in a sense, is the reason why it isn't a charade, isn't it? Because we had that vote in 2016, but the way our system works is we don't just have referendums and those become law. What we do is we have a parliament which has to consider these things in a more reasoned way, Jonathan.
I mean, David Davis wrote about this on BrexitCentral this very morning. He's a doughty defender of Parliament's rights over the executive, but he also makes the very important point that Parliament may be sovereign, but at the end of the day, it's the people who are sovereign, and Parliament gave the power to the people in 2016 to make that decision, and people expect that decision to be implemented, because that was what they were told would happen.
Change, you know? The people, Parliament, at elections, people change their positions. And why is it that this one vote on this one day, after all, Britain voted to join the European Economic Community in 1975 in another referendum, why does one referendum have to rule out everything else for all of time ahead?
Well, we were told by the government at the time, in a leaflet they spent £9 million of our money on, that it was a once-in-a-generation decision and the government would implement that decision, because the previous referendum had indeed been 40 years previously. And, of course, we had a general election the following year, in 2017...
Which was, we had an inconclusive result.
Where 85% of people voted for parties who said they were committed to delivering the referendum result.
You don't think that it has to be binding for all time, what happened in 2016?
No, not at all, because we're debating completely different propositions now to what was actually on the table in 2016. And I do find it slightly odd that Jonathan can, on the one hand, say that people are sovereign, but also, on the other hand, say that Parliament can have umpteen votes on these Brexit deals, whereas the people only get one, and they're stuck with their decision, even if what they voted for doesn't resemble at all what we're discussing right now.
All right, where do you think we're going to end up, Jonathan Isaby?
Look, I don't think, frankly, any of us who watch this every day, day in, day out, know the definitive answer to that. But what I would say is that if the people in the building behind us do contrive to stop Brexit, scupper Brexit, prevent that vote from being delivered upon, I think that would provoke the most profound crisis in democracy and the electoral process.
What do you think where are we going to end up?
I think we're going to end up with no conclusive result tonight or on Monday, and I don't think the next meaningful vote will pass either. So we're going to be left with a choice of we can continue going round and round in circles, or we can put this to the people. We all know the options that are in front of us, and let the people decide. They are sovereign, as Jonathan said, which one they want to go forward. That wouldn't be scuppering democracy at all.
OK, thank you both very much indeed. This is Sky News.